You might be able to get away with feeding a menagerie of wild animals in rural New Zealand, but doing that in a built-up urban environment, well, that's a different thing altogether. Wellington Zoo is tucked in the hills surrounding the city and home to more than 500 animals of varying species, size and shapes. And it might surprise you to know they're not just fed a diet of scraps and offcuts. Gianina Schwanecke headed along at feeding time at the zoo to learn more about where they get their food from and what's on the menu.
It's feeding time at Wellington Zoo and the otters are hungry. Have you ever wondered what the zoo animals eat or where their food comes from? The zoo is home to over 500 animals, including 68 species, ranging from lions, tigers, giraffes, monkeys, lizards and otters. Every animal's diet is different, from fruit and veggies to fish, eggs and meat, pelleted food and browsing material. It makes feeding time a challenge. We headed along to the otter feeding time where we meet Sylvia Orr to find out exactly what the animals are eating. Can you tell us who's dining today?
So we've got 4 otters here. They're all brothers. So there's Echo, Sai, Bhutan and Jambi. And they're from 2 separate litters. So Echo and Sai are 12 and then Bhutan and Jambi are 11.
Are those the hungry otters we can hear in the background?
Yep, they are.
And what's on the menu today?
So here we've got some octopus for them. So they're each getting a little octopus as part of their diet. And these guys, the majority of their diet is seafood since they are otters. So they eat lots and lots of different kinds of fish.
The squeals mean it's time for dinner. The otters grab their meals and take it away from the others to quickly eat.
Oh my god.
The 4 otters are chowing down on their mini octopuses. They look quite happy with their meal for today. We talked to Simon Eyre, who's in charge of the menu as the animal science manager. His role is to look after the nutrition team and vet teams.
I'm a second-generation zookeeper. My father was a zookeeper in London Zoo, and it's been part of who I am since I was born. I've worked in zoos for about 30 years now. I started off as a keeper in the UK, and I moved around a couple of zoos, and then I moved over here 20 years ago as a team leader, and I've moved up into the role that I am in now.
Simon shows us the nutrition centre where they prepare the food for the animals. There's 2 massive freezers, which you can likely hear in the background, and a huge commercial kitchen where the food's prepared. Inside, there's baskets of fresh produce and buckets filled with prepared meals for each of the animals.
Every animal has a very, very different diet, from the stick insects that only eat eucalypt browse, to the lions and tigers that eat meat, to the meerkats, which have a very varied diet, to our otters. Otters need multiple feeds every time of day because they have such a high metabolic rate.
There are 4 main types of feed at the zoo.
So we use a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables. They come from the same suppliers that your cafes and restaurants would get theirs from. Even some of the supermarkets get it from these same suppliers. So we get the same food that you do, and we will give it to our chimpanzees or our pygmy marmosets or our red pandas, and they all have very different requirements for sizes of food and types of food as well.
Preparing so many meals certainly keeps the team busy.
For the team in here, they start about 7:30 in the morning, and they start with preparing the things that are needed for that very morning. So it might be cooked eggs or cooked potatoes or something. So those are done first thing in the morning, and then throughout the rest of the day they're preparing the fruit and vegetables for chimpanzees or things for the meerkats. So they get a whole load of the diets done in one day. Another day of the week will be just preparing the meats. They do Monday to Friday because most of our food doesn't get chopped for the animals, because if you can imagine chimpanzee, they don't want little tiny bits of food chopped up like confetti. They like whole big things. So a lot of that can be prepared way in advance so that it's all ready for them. And because the food is as fresh as you get, if not fresher, it actually keeps really well. We have a walk-in fridge where we get about 3 deliveries of a pallet load of fruit and vegetables a week, and we'll go and empty that fruit and vegetable fridge twice a week.
The meat and veggies are kept separately. With so many animals to feed, there's always lots of food coming through the centre, about 0.5 tonne to 1 tonne a week.
We just had a hay and lucerne hay delivery, and that was 3 tonnes, and that lasted us a couple of weeks.
Meat is sourced from a supplier in the South Island, which supplies pet food companies. The fruit and veggies come from the same suppliers that stock our restaurants.
Our fruit and vegetables, as I've said, comes from normal fruit and veg suppliers who supply the restaurants and things. This is mostly for our birds and for some of the invertebrates. So things like our locusts eat a lot of the wheatgrass that is growing on the top. And we will actually grow and completely empty this in a week.
The zoo also sources pelleted feeds, specialised for each animal. Some from here and some from overseas.
Some we get from within New Zealand, some we get from Australia, and we bring in about 5 to 6 tonnes of it from America every year.
Sourcing browsing materials, though, is a little more challenging.
We get bamboo for our red pandas because obviously they eat a lot of bamboo. Some of that's grown on site and some of it is collected from within Wellington by our horticulture team. And then we also get a lot of browse from arborists. When they're trimming down trees, if those trees haven't been sprayed with anything, we can use it to feed the animals. The giraffes mainly eat browse, so they'll eat lots of different branches, the leaves off of branches that are brought in by the arborists, as well as some specific pelleted foods as well.
And our friends, the otters.
They have very varied, so they have lots of different types of fish and shellfish, and all of the fish and shellfish that we can get is MSC certified, so Marine Stewardship Council, so it's sustainable fish, because sustainability is a big part of what we do here.
With such different dietary needs, I asked who the fussiest eaters are.
Of the red pandas, easily. They don't like change, and they like to eat one thing and one type of food, and they don't like changing to a new one.
We take a closer look at the food inside the fridge.
So this is our walk-in fridge. And as you can see, just looking at things like our broccoli, it's just as good as you'll get from the supermarket. And we go through all of this probably twice a week. We go through entire crates full of apples and pears. We have special foods like even melons and things go out to the animals.
This whole container in here.
This whole entire fridge will get emptied probably twice a week.
Can you talk me through what this tray is here?
Yeah, this is all the method of it. So where everything has a diet sheet, and it has a weight of food that gets fed out. So all of that is weighed out each time that the diets are prepared. But obviously that might not equate to an entire pumpkin. So those bits of pumpkin are saved and then used for the next diet that's being made so that we don't waste. So we use everything that we can, and we have a selection of cooked vegetables as well that also get used for some of the diets for some of our older animals.
It seems some of the animals eat as well as I do, if not better.
The welfare of our animals is paramount. We should not be feeding them sub-quality food, so they get just as good as you do.
Now back to the otters at feeding time.
Simon, can you tell me a little bit about where the seafood might have been sourced for feeding like this?
So all of the seafood that we get, that we can possibly get, is MSC certified, so Marine Stewardship Council certified, which means it is sustainable. We get it from large seafood suppliers who, once again, are the same ones who will supply the supermarkets and things like that. And our otters get fed probably 5 or 6 times a day. So we go through a large amount of food just for the otters alone, and it varies all the time.
Do they have a favourite type of seafood?
I think all of it.
All of it?
They have such a high metabolism that they will eat and have to be fed again and again and again, which is why they get so many different feeds every single day. Nutrition is a big part of the welfare of any animal.
Do the tastes differ by personality or by any individual otters?
Not that I've ever noticed. I've worked with quite a few different otters and different species of otters over the years, and they all love their fish and their seafood. Certainly things like prawns and octopus and squid, they seem to demolish the moment it goes in.
I see there's also a few balls and toys hanging around. Is that part of the feeding process?
So it can be, or they can be enrichment, because the otters are quite dexterous. They like using their hands to do different things, so they might play with the rocks, which they quite like, actually juggling rocks a bit. But they will also move balls around. We can put some of their food into balls so they can actually work to get to the food rather than it just being put straight out for them.
After their dinner, it's time for a swim and some fun in the sun, ready for their next feed.
That was Simon Hare, Sylvia Orr and the Otters, Echo, Sea, Jambi and Bhutan. And you can find some great photos and a video of the otters chowing down on our website, rnz.co.nz/countrylife.